The Scottish Highlands, a land of rugged beauty, ancient traditions, and a people deeply connected to their land. For centuries, the Highlanders lived in harmony with their environment, cultivating small plots of land and maintaining a way of life that had been passed down through generations. Yet, the 18th and 19th centuries brought about a dramatic upheaval known as the Highland clearances. This period marked a significant transformation in the social and economic fabric of the Highlands. Thousands of crofters, families who for generations had worked small plots of land, were evicted from their homes. These evictions were often brutal and sudden, leaving many families destitute and forced to seek new lives elsewhere, often in urban areas or even overseas. This period of forced displacement, driven by economic forces and changing land management practices, left an indelible mark on the Highlands and its people. The traditional way of life was disrupted, and the landscape itself was transformed as large-scale sheep farming took over the land once used for small-scale agriculture. One name synonymous with this turbulent era is Patrick Sellar, a figure both reviled and defended for his role in the clearances. Sellar's actions have been the subject of much historical debate, with some viewing him as a ruthless enforcer of economic change, while others see him as a man caught up in the inevitable tide of progress. Sellar served as a factor or estate manager for the wealthy landowners who sought to transform the Highlands from traditional crofting communities into large-scale sheep farming operations. His role was to implement the landowner's vision, often at the expense of the local population. Sellar's actions, particularly during the notorious Strathnaver clearances, have cemented his place in Scottish history as a symbol of the brutal efficiency with which the clearances were often carried out. The Strathnaver clearances were among the most infamous, involving the eviction of entire communities to make way for sheep farming. His actions, particularly during the notorious Strathnaver clearances, have cemented his place in Scottish history as a symbol of the brutal efficiency with which the clearances were often carried out. The Strathnaver clearances were among the most infamous, involving the eviction of entire communities to make way for sheep farming. This essay will explore the life and legacy of Patrick Sellar, delving into the complexities of his character and the broader context of the Highland clearances. We will examine the motivations behind his actions and the impact they had on the Highland communities. Examining his role in the clearances, the legal challenges he faced, and the controversies that surrounded him. Sellar was not only a key figure in the implementation of the clearances, but also faced significant legal battles as a result of his actions. The legal challenges he faced, and the ongoing debate surrounding his actions. The legacy of Patrick Sellar is a contentious one, with historians and descendants of the Highlanders continuing to debate his role and the morality of the clearances, and the ongoing debate surrounding his actions. Through this exploration, we aim to shed light on a dark chapter in Scottish history and understand the lasting impact of the Highland clearances on the people and the land. Patrick Sellar was born in 1780 in the parish of Morven, Caithness, in the far north of Scotland. His family background was modest, his father a shoemaker and small tenant farmer. Despite their humble circumstances, Sellar received a good education, attending the local parish school before progressing to higher education. He studied law at the University of Aberdeen, demonstrating a sharp intellect and a drive to succeed.
After completing my studies, I embarked on a career as a lawyer, initially working in Edinburgh. I quickly gained a reputation for my legal acumen and my ability to navigate complex cases. However, the pull of the Highlands, with its opportunities for advancement amidst the changing economic landscape, proved too strong to resist.
Sellar's legal expertise and his familiarity with the Highlands attracted the attention of powerful landowners who were eager to implement large-scale changes to their estates. These landowners, influenced by the agricultural revolution sweeping through the lowlands, saw greater profit in sheep farming than in the traditional crofting system that had sustained generations of Highlanders. The turning point in Sellar's life came in 1810 when he secured a position as factor to the Marquess and Marchioness of Stafford, the largest landowners in the county of Sutherland. This role was not just a job, it was a significant leap in his career, placing him at the heart of one of the most ambitious agricultural transformations of the time. The Stafford estates encompassed vast swaths of the Highlands, and the Marquis, driven by a desire to improve his holdings, sought to transform the region into a profitable sheep farming enterprise. This vision was part of a broader movement known as the Highland clearances, which aimed to modernize agriculture and increase productivity.
Sellar, with his legal background and his understanding of the changing economic climate, was tasked with implementing the Marquis's vision. His legal expertise was crucial in navigating the complex land laws and ensuring that the transformation was carried out within the bounds of legality, even if it meant pushing those boundaries to their limits. He was a firm believer in the principles of agricultural improvement and saw the traditional crofting system as inefficient and outdated. The crofters, who had lived on the land for generations, practiced a form of subsistence farming that Sellar deemed incompatible with the economic goals of the estate. In his view, the modernization of the Highlands was essential for its economic progress, even if it meant displacing the existing population. Sellar believed that the introduction of large-scale sheep farming would not only increase the profitability of the land, but also bring about a more orderly and productive use of the landscape.
As factor, Sellar wielded considerable power over the lives of the people living on the Stafford estates. His decisions affected thousands, and his role required a delicate balance between the interests of the landowners and the welfare of the tenants. He was responsible for collecting rents, managing land use, and overseeing the eviction of tenants deemed surplus to the new economic order. These evictions were often brutal and swift, leaving many families destitute and homeless. Sellar approached his duties with a ruthless efficiency that would earn him both admiration from his employers and the enduring hatred of those whose lives he upended. His actions were seen by some as necessary for progress, while others viewed them as a harsh and unforgiving disruption of traditional ways of life. The legacy of Sellar's tenure as factor is a complex one, marked by both economic advancement and deep social upheaval. The impact of Sellar's work extended far beyond the immediate financial gains for the Stafford estates. It set a precedent for land management practices across the Highlands and contributed to a broader narrative of change and conflict during a pivotal period in Scottish history. The Highland clearances, with Sellar as one of its most infamous agents, remain a poignant chapter in the story of Scotland's transformation. Today, the Highlands bear the marks of this transformation, with vast sheep farms and altered landscapes standing as a testament to the era of change that Sellar helped to usher in. Memorials and historical sites now commemorate the lives and struggles of those who were displaced, ensuring that the story of Sellar's rise as a factor and its consequences are not forgotten. The most notorious episode of Sellar's career unfolded in the Strathnaver Valley in 1814. This event is often cited as one of the darkest chapters in the history of the Highland clearances, a period marked by widespread evictions and suffering. Acting on the instructions of the Marquis of Stafford, Sellar began the process of clearing the valley of its inhabitants to make way for sheep farming. The Marquis, driven by economic motives, saw sheep farming as a more profitable use of the land compared to the traditional crofting system.
The evictions in Strathnaver, carried out with a brutality that shocked even some of my contemporaries, became emblematic of the human cost of the Highland clearances. Families who had lived on the land for generations were suddenly uprooted, their homes destroyed, and their way of life obliterated.
Sellar's methods were harsh and uncompromising. He showed little regard for the well-being of the people he was displacing, focusing solely on the task of clearing the land as quickly and efficiently as possible. Crofters were given little or no notice to vacate their homes, and those who resisted were met with force. The evictions were often carried out with a level of violence that left many in shock. The crofters, unprepared and helpless, found themselves at the mercy of Sellar's ruthless tactics. Houses were burned, often with belongings still inside, and families were driven from their land with nowhere to go. The sight of burning homes became a common one, a stark reminder of the relentless nature of the clearances. Families, including children and the elderly, were left to fend for themselves in the harsh Scottish landscape.
The elderly and infirm were treated with particular cruelty, their plight ignored in the name of progress. These vulnerable individuals, unable to move quickly or fend for themselves, suffered immensely during the evictions. Their suffering was seen as a necessary sacrifice for the so-called advancement of the region. One particularly disturbing incident involved the eviction of an elderly woman named Catherine Mackay. Bedridden and unable to leave her home, Mackay was left to die as her house was set ablaze. This act of cruelty highlighted the extreme measures Sellar was willing to take to achieve his goals.
The incident, widely reported at the time, sparked outrage and cemented Sellar's reputation as a heartless and ruthless agent of the clearances. Newspapers of the era documented the public's horror and anger, with many calling for justice for the victims of Sellar's actions. The legacy of these events continues to be felt, serving as a somber reminder of the human cost of economic progress. The brutality of the Strathnaver evictions did not go unchallenged. Public outcry over Sellar's actions, fueled by reports of cruelty and injustice, led to his arrest and trial in 1816. He faced charges of culpable homicide in connection with the death of Catherine Mackay, as well as numerous other charges related to the evictions.
The trial, held in Inverness, became a focal point for the growing debate over the Highland clearances. Sellar, defended by a team of prominent lawyers, argued that he was simply carrying out the legal instructions of his employer, and that the evictions were necessary for the economic improvement of the region.
The jury, after deliberating for just 30 minutes, acquitted Sellar on all charges. The verdict was met with mixed reactions. While some celebrated Sellar's acquittal as a victory for progress and the rule of law, others denounced it as a miscarriage of justice, proof that the wealthy and powerful could act with impunity.